All right, everybody, here we go. We're going to get started and we're going to do it pretty fast. We're just going to do a quick jump in. Here's the thing. I'm probably going to be on here for less than an hour today. I like to do almost an hour, basically spend my lunch break, breaking things down for you guys. My name's Tet, and as you can see, I'm Time Dad Alpha, the original Twitcher. And we're going to cover a few things, but basically we're going to go back to the House of Lords later. And then we're going to discuss a few psychological tricks that have been on my mind lately when it comes to, trying to wrap your head around why politics is just sort of a big bag of messy nonsense, especially in comparison to the tools that we could be using. That's why we're going to go back to the House of Lords and discuss with the people that actually have to wrestle with this problem. I think they're doing a bad job at wrestling with this problem because they aren't, giving full credence to it. But we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But until then, let's go ahead and just chill out with this new little funky beat that I found. Welcome in, and if you want to say something in the chat, you go right ahead. And this is a place where all words are on the table. There is no such thing as the dreaded hate speech. You're allowed to say whatever you want. It's a freedom that I fought for. It's a freedom that I want you to have, no matter what. So please say what comes to your mind. And please realize that being able to recognize a troll is one of those abilities that should be, graduated in this life. So if you want to sit here and troll, go ahead and troll to your heart's delight, just get it out of your system. All right. Yeah. Take it easy. Welcome in, everybody. Everybody, let's go ahead and turn off the God voice and move over. I'm going to turn this guy on. Yeah, there we go. A little lighting in here. We are going to move over to this guy. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction. The last couple days, if you haven't seen me, it's not because I haven't been making an attempt to be here. It's because where I'm staying at here on the beach, it's a very beautiful, wonderful, warm climate. And unfortunately, that means that our internet is a little bit off the beaten path. And so I usually have really good internet when the skies are clear. When the skies are not clear, however, it gets pretty rocking and rolling as far as like the shoddiness of my internet. But if you want to go back to the VODs, or you want to click on the YouTube, collector that I have set up, everything that I've said over the last 3 or 4 days, you can be found on YouTube, and I automatically transfer everything over or export everything over to that as soon as I'm done. Now, sometimes I change the title, sometimes I change a little bit, but what you got to understand is every single day I come here, and every single day I spend about an hour, discussing and talking about the bizarreness of my world when it comes to politics. Now, I take a different stance than your everyday average bear, and that's because of a couple things that you'll see over here and in the background. Now, I know it seems a little weird that I would put these symbols up, but in a way, this is sort of my resume. This is sort of like, why the hell would you give a shit about what I'm saying and why I'm saying it? And that takes a lot. I need to give you a little bit of background about who I am and why I'm saying these things the way I am, so I don't come off as just the crazy crackpot that's pulling out of a bizarre theory that wasn't shoved down your throat by your multi-level marketing scam, which is your media sources. Your media sources are marketing companies for the people that are willing to pay. No different than your YouTube channels or the idea that people ask for subscribers or for anything like that. I mean, people are out here to make money. They're out here to hit the hustle. Now, see, I already did my hustle. My hustle is over, right? So I get to sit back, put my feet up, and give zero fucks about appeasing some boss out there that wants to make sure that the shareholders are happy. And realize right now that that you are not the shareholder of America. Like they feed you this, bullshit line of you as the voter get to decide who the leader is. No, you don't. You do not get to decide. And if you still believe that lie, right, then you deserve everything that's coming your way, including all the nonsensical COVID vaccines and boosters and nonsense like that. Instead of putting your foot down and saying, no, I'm not going to pay you anymore. No, if somebody that works for you, they tell you they work for you, you get a chance to tell them no, right? And that idea that they get to decide when you get that chance, no. You're the boss. You get to fire them whenever you want. They don't get to sit there and hold you over a gun and tell you that they're going to put you in chains. Like, imagine this. Just imagine what would happen if an entire state said, we're not paying taxes this year. I mean, you want to talk about the craziest form of peaceful protest? Stop giving them your money. And quit making it a habit, because that's what it is right now. It's a habit. Your parents did it, their parents did it, their parents did it, their parents did it. And you have to understand that. Go look up the history of income tax. Realize that it was never meant to be a part of this country, and that they changed it because of the wars that we were launched into. Right? Here's the funny thing about history. You can find a lot about why and what your country's really about by what they sweep under the rug. What they purposely try to hide from you. Not in a bad way. I'm telling you, it's not like they burned the history books, like some countries do. But when they want to get away with something, they will, distract you in 90,000 different ways. They will propagandize you in including telling you that you need to vote for Democrat or Republican. And it really is. If you don't learn anything else from me, go look up this word. It's called magician's trick. Magician's trick. This isn't a goofy word. This is how a magician does 90% of its sleight of hand. It does 95% of the smoke and mirrors that goes on has to deal with the magician's trick of knowing what the outcome is and making you believe that you have a choice. Making you think you have a choice when you don't. This isn't about, the choosing the lesser of two evils. This is about saying, hey, there was never a choice in the first place. This is all a scam to make you think that you have a choice, right? And the reason that I'm saying that is because my job in the military, right, that I did for you guys for almost a dozen years was cryptologic linguistics, meaning I learned how people talk. I learned what they say and how they say it. I know how they convey messages, not just with their body language, but who they support and who they don't support. I see the chess moves on the table and what they're doing. And to me, I'm just going, you as an American, me as an American, when I look back at my life, I'm going, dude, it was all a crock of shit. All of it. Every single bit of it. The whole idea that I went in and jumped into the military and did all these things, it's like, yeah, I know where my mindset was when I was doing that. I know that I wanted to be there and do the honorable thing. But by the time I got out, I was working for contractors that would have never done what I've done. I wasn't working for people who had my best interest at heart. I was working for people who would have been just fine with me, being in a meat grinder. These people do not, and they're not told, they're not trained to care either. Okay. So I'm not here to bitch and whine and moan and complain about like, oh, we need to get America back. I'm not in that camp. I'm never, voted actually. And that's the thing about me is when I say, hey, I don't play dumb games, voting in America is like voting on pro wrestling. And that's a quote from Joe Rogan. It's like, that's not mine. I didn't make it up. But when I heard it, I was like, dude, and he said it during one of his comedy specials. I was like, dude, that's funny because it's true. Now, my motivations are really simple. About a month ago, I had a kid, and his name's Bowden, and he is awesome. Like, he's a little over a month old now, and it forced me to look back at the last 20 years. I went into the military in 2005, and I'd already lived out of the country by then. I had already gone to school. I started going to school in 2003, as far as past high school. And I'm still a student over at the University of San Francisco in their theology and religion department because of how I have this obsession with morals and how to teach them to people without causing, the minimal amount of pain. Because morals are hard to learn. They're hard lessons. Because there's two ways you can learn things in this life, either by your experiences or by somebody else's. And a lot of people they just do not have the ability to get the experience, right, that I have. They just don't, right? You don't have the over 2 years that I spent at DLI. You don't have all the time that I spent down at Keesler Air Force Base. You don't have Korea. You don't have Germany. You don't have Israel. You don't have all these places that I've been and the things that I've done. So here I am to sit here and tell you, every country that I ever went to, the governments were set up exactly the same. To festoon and deceive the people out of their money and give it to people who had already paid to play. Right? When you are looking at a politician, realize they come from three categories. And I say the same things over and over and over again because that's exactly how my country, as well as everyone else in the world, works. This is why your advertising works, is because you as a human are a pattern recognition machine. No different than any other communication ability. That was my job. I did a job called combat communications. And so when I look at you and I tell you that your politicians come from three categories, they're either lawyers, businessmen, or actors. Each one of these have one thing in common, and that is they are all very well adept in the practice of lying. They will lie to you and not even think twice about it. They will lie directly to your face and not bat an eyelash, right? And they will know that they're doing it. That's what they've been trained to do. This isn't hard to think about, and this isn't about a conspiracy. This is about employing your tools, and in the military, I was a tool, right? I was able to see how, they would work the jobs and the setups that we would have there. And so before you go in the military, you have to do something called pass an ASVAB. And it's a proficiency test. And if you don't get a good enough score on it, it limits you at certain jobs, right? And so you sort of see that same scenario play out in your schooling system. Hey, you take this aptitude test, you either pass it or you don't, blah, 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 blah. And you have the prerequisites to get into that school, whatever. But then you also get a code, and everyone who's ever been in the military understands that code. It's an MOS for most of the other places, or for the military, it's called the AFSC. And, it's the Air Force, I think it's like something code like I forget it, security code or sufficiency code or something. But it describes your job. So like you have a job like EOD, which is exploding ordnance disposal. Or my job, which was a cryptologic linguist. Or then I moved over to the 3 deltas, and it's a 5-number thing. So it's a 5 alphanumeric code that lists you as sort of like the player in the game, right? And so you're like, hey, I need so many combat engineers to come up and do this. So you, as the colonel or whatever, you really do. You start moving these people around like pieces, okay? And you don't look at them as human anymore. You are that. Your little social security number is basically your little tag for you as the cattle, right? And they don't care about you. They care about how much money you make for them. This idea that, we live in the country of the free is like, that's the magician's trick. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to think that you're free, that you go out and you earn your money and you pay your fair share. Now think about this. The politicians that live on their lavish jets in these royal society lifestyles, right? Where does their money come from? Mr. Impoverished, working 100 hours a week to barely put food on your table for you and your family. It comes from you. They get to come and ask you for almost 30% of your income to go to, roads and bridges. Oh, but we have to spend $50,000 on the toilet seat, and we have to, spend $100,000 on that, that armchair over there. That, of course, that guy over there put money back into my campaign, so I gave him the contract to get $100,000 for an armchair. Yeah. It's so sick and twisted once you start uncovering this. And like I said, this has nothing to do with conspiracy. This has to do with like interests. If you have a like interest, no different than any other hierarchical form of company, government, corporation, military, every single one of them is set up this way. And so when I look at your Democratic Party or I look at your Republican Party, I'm just going, all of them both together is actually the corporation that is pulling the money out of you. And whether you want to call it money, you want to call it labor, you want to call it your hard work, you want to call it your attempt to put your feet up by the time you're old enough to, say, hey, I put in my fair share, right? And so here I am on the other side of this, and I have a choice. I don't have to do this. I don't even live in America anymore. I'm like, I don't even put up with it anymore. But this is my, if in a way, I guess, there are hundreds of election deniers who may win Tuesday. Sure. What's going on, Jimmy McGill, attorney? Oh my gosh, I remember you, dude. How's it going? Sorry, I didn't see you in the chat. Anyway, see, what do you think that will mean? The election denier? I don't think it matters. I think if the election denier or you election supporter, it doesn't matter. It's all about, keeping you engaged in, the scenario. It's saying, hey, as long as the conversation keeps going and I got you in the conversation, you're not going to be too worried about revolution. Especially when the ones who win state secretary positions. Who cares? Who cares if they win state secretary position? You are nothing without your muscle. Nothing. See, how can you be an American and not support fair elections? Because I don't believe the elections are actually fair. I don't think they're real. I think it's one of those things that sits there and goes, hey, here you go. Here's an election where this person may or may not win, but at the end of the day, things never change. Not you, but just rhetorical. Muscle. I mean physical reaction. I mean the police officers and the military who show up to enforce the laws that people pretend that they pull out of their butt whenever they want to actually use them. What does muscle mean? Oh, it's the same thing, mafia, cartels. It's like you have the guys that sit at the top, and then you have the muscle, the guys who don't actually make the decisions, sort of like the military. The military is the muscle of your political force. If you don't do what Mr. Joe Biden wants you to do, he can, if he wants to, all the way up to and using the muscle to make you do it. So how do the mafia and the military or the police come into play? It was like, did I just not explain it? Like, for example, Mr. Jimmy McGill, attorney, you decide you don't want to pay your taxes. What do you think happens? And so the idea then becomes, it's like, I will support laws that I think are fair. If I do not want to support those laws, I don't have to pay my taxes, right? If I all of a sudden say, hey, no, this is my form of peaceful protest. I peacefully protest by not giving you my money. I'm asking you about elections, not taxes. Okay, well, and that's what I'm saying is like this idea that every 4 years you get to vote on a person that may or may not do the thing that you want them to do. Do you think that's the way that we should be using our world today? Or do you think that there might be a better tool at our disposal that we could be using, such as the way that we're communicating right now? Did you vote every 4 years since you were 18? No, actually, I've never voted in America ever. I saw the concept from a while back, and I was just like, this is dumb. It was like, this doesn't make any sense at all. I think the idea that you have to be told who's the smart one. You're told that these two people that you're allowed to vote between are the smartest possible people that are available for that particular job. And I'm going, no, that's impossible. I think that they are all put there by the people who want them there because they're good actors, lawyers, or businessmen. Right? That's what they are. They're good at, playing, that character and making you think that you chose. You don't believe that. That's fine. And I'm not here to convince you. Like, I'm not here to start arguments. I'm here to tell people, hey, do whatever you want to. I believe in a philosophy of you do you, boo, boo, right? And give everyone the same respect that I demand for myself. No, I'm agreeing with you. Okay. Maybe I read that wrong. I don't believe that. I saw that. Who said they were the smartest of? I didn't see that first. Who said they were the smartest available? I don't believe that. No, I'm agreeing with you. I do not think that they're the smartest or most qualified. It's like, so Mr. Jimmy McGill, how do you think that they get to that point where they are nominated? Because even that whole process, it's like the moment you go down that rabbit hole of being nominated, you're like, wait a second, what's nomination? Who's a delegate? How does your vote actually get to the point where it means anything? They get to that point in the primaries, through primaries. I was like, okay. What I'm saying is in those primaries, when they said, hey, I'm going to run for this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to campaign for this, who comes to them most of the time with all that money for their campaign? And this is where I'm saying you have elected officials by companies and corporations, not by the people. Duly elected primary officials. And see, this is what I'm talking about. You get into these concepts where you have these rank structures of somebody who is duly elected primary officials, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, hey, who voted for the nominators? Who voted for these delegates? Who voted for these elected primary officials? That's the system. What do you propose? AI governance. Easy. I want the same responses that I can get from Google Maps in my government. Imagine if someone did this, and I said this to someone the other day. I said, hey, if you could get that, ability to have one wish at all, I was like, I'd want everyone simultaneously to say, I want AI governance that only reports to me. Because that's what it would be like. You're thinking that an AI governance would only go to one source. That'd be like saying Google Maps can only report to one person to give that one person directions. It would be so easy for it to give you in service real time what you were asking for. Like, so for example, we have this issue with war, or we have this issue with, countries not getting along. If you were getting, everything satisfied, Mr. Jimmy McGill, if you were getting everything satisfied, like you didn't have to pay for your house, you didn't have to pay for your stuff, you didn't have to do anything, what would you do on a daily basis? Like, how would you spend your day? Can you give me an example of the best besides Google Maps? Sure. Let's any email server, any emails. I mean, think about how you used any application that multiple people use simultaneously that has an account that goes to a server, right? And inside that server, you basically are in a list form. But the processing and the hard drives that sit there are so powerful that it can give you responses and everyone else responses in real time. I'm talking about the governance, the system that we have in place versus what you propose. And that's what I'm saying. Imagine if you were able, to go, just like we went to all the maps providers that gave you your road maps, because I don't know how old you are, Jimmy McGill, but I'm assuming that you remember using like maybe a roadmap. But I haven't seen one in a gas station now for easily like 10 years, right? Yeah, you use Google. But I mean, when was the last time you used a roadmap? What do you think happened to those map developers? You know, it's not that you fired them; they just got replaced. No different than you replaced the car and buggy. What I'm saying and what I propose is the same thing that's going on right now. I don't know if you caught the last couple of my episodes, but one of the things that I'm going over is this right now. So this is something that just happened not even a couple weeks ago. A robot called Ada gave evidence to the House of Lords, right? And this is going on in the UK. So you want to hear my thoughts about the technology? This is sort of has to do with this, and I'm not going to go into this right now. I'm just sort of giving you this idea that this is already happening, that there are questions that are already happening in the political sphere about this change and this shift, but they're not quite there yet. So what they're doing here in this particular, they're asking the questions that you and I are proposing right now. They're like, hey, how do you think that this will affect us? And so they bring up all these ideas called, we've seen this happen over and over and over again throughout humanity, where we will have a technological advancement, and that technological advancement displaces the people that are already in the job market right now. So one of the things that these guys are talking about is how, I don't know if you've ever heard of DALL-E 2. It's brand new. It's not brand new, but it's an AI service where it basically creates, evolution, I guess. We've been evolving forever, and we create tools, and they create us. That's what Marshall McLuhan said, that great philosopher. But this idea is that we have a tool called AI now, and AI allows us to give it patterns, and it can give us responses that we're looking for. So what this is really affecting right now, and these guys are being questioned, is the digital art market, right? So like digital effects, the ideas for Hollywood, things like that. It's getting to a point where AI can do all of that work that maybe 100 people took to do, that it would have cost Hollywood, or it would have cost the producers, easily hundreds of thousands of dollars. And almost 90% of that workforce that's in school right now, and what their testimonies are, is that they don't even want to work in that field anymore. They're like, dude, we're done. Because this thing called DALL-E 2 comes by and does the job 10 times faster for almost zero the price, because it's an open source process. I'm just going to take that concept of those laws, which are very difficult to replicate art, right? Sustainable art, and apply that to your politicians. Because what is law? Law is just a set of rules, no different than the set of rules that a computer would comprehend. Now imagine the response, instead of you putting in the information with your fingers, tick, 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 whatever, the response would be a computer program running our society. Yes, absolutely. No different than the laws that are running our society right now, correct? The idea is that the human element decides when and where they would like to implement those laws based on the context of the situation at the time. Imagine if that wasn't just in place for the people that are deciding, like the judges. This would be in place for everyone's best interest. This wouldn't be about the best interest of the judge anymore, or the best interest of the politician, or the best interest of the chief of police. This would be about the best interest of each and every individual person, just like Google Maps takes individual interest in your particular personal directions that you give it. What do you think? Anyway, but this is a concept that I'm just pointing at. I mean, I don't have the full layout. Hey, this is how we're going to blow this out. I mean, I can give you how I would do it, right? The first and foremost things, you don't think it's rational. It's not rational to use a program to, as a tool. I mean, because right now the way that I look at politicians is that they should be a tool for for our community, for the citizens, right? Well, what if they're not doing their work up to task? And one of the things that they talk about is like, when you have the printing press that comes along and says, hey, I can print a book within a day, right? You've just displaced all the scribes that, they spent years and years creating that same book. But now they don't have a job anymore. Because who's going to ask it to be done that way when you have a better solution right there? This would be almost like demanding that people carry the rocks on their back when a wheelbarrow is sitting right there. Did your job get replaced or something? Oh, yeah. My job was cryptologic linguistics and network engineering for the Air Force. And I could tell you almost not even, it was more like it was a couple years, and then it started being every year, and then it started being every 6 months, and then it started being every 2 months. Like every new batch of people that we would get coming into the military. So what do you want to do to pay for rent? Oh, I already live in sort of a situation where I've made enough money. You know, it's like I've made enough money and I sort of let that money just roll in. You know, it's like, to me, it's like I have to look at how much do I really need? Like if I had enough to sit, you know, you're independently wealthy. I guess so. I guess you could say that. I don't have to work for the rest of my life if I don't want to. And the thing is how do I want to spend my day? You know, like this is what really hit me when I had my kid. I was like, man, over the last 20 years, I've seen a rapid development in technology that I couldn't have ever imagined. And now I've got to wrap my head around what it's going to be like in the next 20 years and prepare my kid for it. Like, for example, my sweetie's mother's here, I guess the grandmother, not my mother, but the other mother, is here visiting. And she asked me what school I'm planning on putting my son in. And I was just like, I just don't think we're going to have schools like we had, like even I had growing up or you had growing up. We're not going to have schools like that anymore. I mean, imagine every lecturer of every university is now available online, right? All this information that used to be under the lock and key of a library, right, that you had to pay to get access to, you now have access to freely. Happy Sunday. What's going on? Is it Sunday? Yeah, I guess so. They are available online. I was like, yeah, how's it going? See, PM me your nachos. I like it. Any book you want, it'll take you about 10 minutes to find it online. Absolutely. So it's like when we have this much access to information, this is what I'm talking about, Jimmy McGill. Imagine if you had not just access to the information, but the AI could solve the solution for what you're looking for. So it's not like you have to go look up 3 different books, do the solution yourself, come up with it. The AI would do that already because it would give you the outcome. No different than Google Maps gives you the outcome. And it all the way down to the very second that you're going to arrive. Many major universities do. So what do you want someone else to think of you? To think of me? I don't care what they think of me. You know, like I said, my job's done. This is sort of how I just, if I could do this every day, it's sort of the, I guess, what would I call it? My therapy, the ability to just get out here and, you know, say what I think and say, hey, I think we've come to the end of our democracy, no different than the beginning of America came to the end of royal societies. And it's time for that upgrade. It's time for that change. And change is difficult. Change is scary for a lot of people. But if we don't use our tools to the best of our abilities, then you know, why are we purposely hampering ourselves? You know, I said so you want someone else or another artificial entity to solve the problems. I'd like to be able to use the tools at their best abilities. It's not about solving the problem. It's about using the right tool for the problem, right? And if I have a tool that solves a problem bigger, better, faster, I'd like to use it, you know? And so when I look at politicians, how they aren't solving problems, they're creating more problems than they're solving. And I know that these problems could be solved by an AI quite easily. You know, the ability to manage, you know, large amounts of data sets is exactly what an AI is. What are we except for a giant amount of data? Right now, like how you and I are conversing, is just one data point that this AI could assess. Which problems specifically are not being solved? Well, money for I mean, just pick a category. We'll say financial or psychological problems, maybe mental health would be one of them. One of the things I like to sort of daydream about, or just, you know, like I said, just this stuff doesn't exist, so I have to sort of come up with it in my head. Imagine you have somebody who has, you know, some serious problems, you know, like mental health issues, and yet they are around their phone all the time, talking about their issues or experiencing their issues in real time with other people, and they start getting updates that a politician or a mental health professional could never do, ever, because it doesn't have the time to monitor somebody 24/7, 365, right? the AI would have no interest whatsoever in gleaning money from this character or this individual. What updates? The updates such as, for example, you have somebody who gets mad very easily, almost like a violent person. And just like, for example, and I'm pretty sure you've had this experience where you've talked about something, maybe dog food or a dog bowl or whatever, next thing you know, you're being advertised dog bowls, right? Imagine if that same tool was applied to people who had triggers for certain issues, right, that could be psychologically analyzed. And then they would get, before they would pop off, before they would hit that trigger moment where they would do something violent, they would get, a notification to distract them from that particular point, which was what their habit tells them to do. Are you a mental health professional? Absolutely not. I am not. But I don't think that think I need that requirement to think about these things. And that's all I'm doing is I'm just thinking about them. Or have you discussed this with them, with mental health professionals? The ability to study psychology doesn't require anything other than the ability to read, like we discussed earlier. The ability to go out there and access a book by, the people who developed psychological analysis, whether it be Freud, Jung, just take your pick. So no. Actually, I don't promote even to this day. I've been to over 10 different universities, and I think the degree program is just absolute shite. I think it's silly. I think the idea that you go in there and you're like, oh, I check off a box. That's another one that could easily be fixed. The education system. Imagine if, this idea. I didn't say promote. I just wondered if you had asked people in those fields. No, not about this. No, I usually don't talk to too many people in those fields. I think, they have their own agendas sometimes. It's sort of frustrating because, they're there to get paid just like everybody else. The AI wouldn't want to get paid. Maybe talk to them. Like I said, I have no interest in going and building something from the ground up. This is how I choose to do this. I choose to say, hey, I'm going to go live my life. I'm going to go spend about an hour goofing off. I'm going to put the ideas out there. If someone wants to pick up and run with them, that's great. Right? But this is just my idea. That's it. I'm not here to build anything anymore. I've done my stuff. I'm over. I'm going to spend my time with my kid. I'm going to put my feet up. I'm going to enjoy talking about these things. But I have no problem just being the idea man for the rest of my life. Unless you think they're misleading you on purpose. I think everyone has their own agenda. And the fun part about AI is when you have something that doesn't have a Maslow's hierarchy of needs that was built to just be pure strategy. It's like I would really enjoy seeing what it could come up with. That's not hell bent on getting somebody's money or getting somebody's assets or making sure that they can build a career off of their problems. It's like I'm in the process of developing a wearable bracelet to monitor severe depression. I can't talk too much about it, but it would be at a takeoff be prescribed by a doctor linked to a 24-hour staff as well as your doctor. LOL. BS. Yeah, I was like, great, awesome. I was like, these things. I imagine, Mr. PM me your nachos. Imagine that if it wasn't developed by a human. Imagine if it was assessed and developed by an AI that could think about all the pitfalls of your beta test all the way down to every strategy of how it would deploy it. And it could do that within a matter of hours versus what you would have to do as a human as far as your human trials and all these other things that you would have to go through in order to deploy it. I don't think this is something that we would have to do that's wearable because we're already basically wearing it with our cell phones. This is, I don't think your heart rate or anything else like that, just like right now you're seeing me, you're hearing me, the ability to assess human interaction once you have enough monitors, it will be, actually pretty easy for an AI to do this. Anyway, hey guys, you know what? I'm at about 40 minutes, but it's 11:52. I enjoy so much talking to you guys. Hey, if you want to go ahead and give me a follow there, Mr. PM, I'm never going to ask you for your subscription. I'm never going to ask you for money because, like I said, I'm just here to shoot the shit. I'm just here to have some fun, play a little piano, talk about the goofball, like being put on the spot, which is what Jimmy McGill does. And I'm really grateful for that, by the way. Honestly, put me on the spot, make me challenge me, help me sharpen, this thing that I have left called my Hey, PM me for your nachos. Thanks for the follow, bud. It just pumped in. But just to let you know, I'm on here every day between 11 and 1 p.m. I talk about politics and how it's coming. The concept of your democracy is coming to a close, and you're not going to need a war to watch it shift into this new world. So if you like what you hear, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'm gonna play some crazy music, and we're gonna get out of here. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging.